Howdy guys, it's me, Zelda Sage of Fire, once again with episode 2 of Sage Soliloquy. I'm coming at you here, it's about like 1:20 in the morning. Most of you are asleep. Kids these days. Alright, so I actually have some things to talk about from the start this time, courtesy of Spin-712. Which, by the way, Spin. Kirby might have the Warp Star to come after Star Fox, but Kirby does not have something that Fox has, and that is Peppy. Kirby doesn't have Peppy. And I'm sorry, his helpful advice, and once he tells Fox to do a barrel roll, I mean, it's over. There's no way Kirby can come back from that and get his watermelon. I'm sorry. Sorry, Fox wins. Okay. Moving on to the first topic. It's based on a question Spin Dash asked me for the last video. And that is, what would you imagine the perfect game to be? I'm not really sure where to start. I suppose I'll just start by listing some of my favorite games. My all-time favorite game, for almost as long as I can remember that I've been gaming, has been The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. I personally think it's probably the greatest game ever made. My second favorite game is probably Metroid Prime, the first one on the GameCube. That game is pretty much incredible. After that, it gets a little tricky to kind of rank them, because I mean, I've got like The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, Dragon Age Origins, Darksiders, and Darksiders 2. Donkey Kong Country Returns, Kingdoms of Amalur, Fable. I think the most common thread between all of those games is probably that they're action RPGs. That's probably my favorite genre combination sort of thing. A game like Kingdoms of Amalur, it blew my mind how well done it was made. There's a lot of controversy with the developer, big huge games and all that jazz, but I thought the game was absolutely brilliant. It was like what Fable 2 and Fable 3 wanted to be in their inflated, egotistical dreams. But really, to create the perfect game, that's something no one's been able to do, obviously, or I would have just said it. It's really tough to say, because Kingdoms of Amalur was really, really close with the way they presented everything in the side quests and the openness of the world. It was huge. A lot bigger than I expected. I probably clocked in about 100 hours. Yeah, I was about 100 hours when I finished the game. So that one would be really close. Really close. Another close one would be Darksiders 2. Because Darksiders 1 was almost a perfect combination of the dungeon crawling and puzzles of Zelda and the combat of a game like God of War or Batman Arkham Asylum. And I mean, the combos were fluid, the combat was heavy. You could instantly hit B on the 360's controller and just go right into a finishing move, and boom, guy's dead. And it had big sprawling dungeons with puzzles, and you get a piece of gear inside the dungeon that you loot, and basically you have to use that against the boss. That's something Zelda does all the time. And what Darksiders 2 did is it took that formula, changed the way the combat worked. He made the main character, rather than War, who's big and clunky and uses this big friggin' sword to just slice everyone up, it changes to his brother Death, who is very lithe, very agile, very much like a Prince of Persia kind of style, but he's still more mobile and more able to move around better. And he uses scythes. 2 scythes. And they made the combat faster. They took away the ability to block completely. You have to dodge if you don't want to get hit. And they added a lot more RPG elements to it. Death levels up. He's got skills like strength, defense, arcane, resistance. His health meter is just a continuous meter with a number rather than 1 health bar, and up to 10 skulls, which were like almost like heart pieces, almost like energy tanks from Metroid. They brought skills in. You get a skill point every time you level up, so you can go through the Harbinger tree, which is melee skills, or the Necromancer tree, which is your magic, and you can summon skeletons and crows and stuff, and it's pretty wicked. Plus the loot system, randomized loot everywhere. It's almost like Diablo 2 with loot. It's random and it's everywhere, and it's really cool just to be able to break stuff and find this piece of loot or that piece of loot, and be able to say, well, this one gives me more defense, but that one has health regen. Which one do I use? Plus, they introduced something I haven't really seen before, and that's a notion called possessed weapons. These weapons, you can sacrifice lower weapons to these, and even armor pieces, even weapons and armor, you can sacrifice it to the possessed weapon, and it will eventually level up and gain some extra properties, like a set of possessed scythes to fight with. If you feed it a lot of armor pieces, when it levels up, it will not only increase the damage it does and whatever extra stat it has, like a critical hit chance, you can add like defense to it or strength, and that can go up. You can level it up 5 times, and so by the time this weapon is fully upgraded, it's just totally awesome and way better than anything else you get. So I think, well, the other thing is that Darksiders 2 is like 3 times the size of the first Darksiders. I finished the first Darksiders at around 15 to 20 hours, and it was amazing, and it took me like somewhere between 30 and 40 for Darksiders 2. Yeah, you see me looking up because I got Death's Mask in the collector's edition right there. You can see it in the pictures. I put it in the thread, guys. Come on. So yeah, if you were going to my perfect game, if you take, oh boy, you'd have to probably take a lot of the customization and leveling up from both Darksiders 2 and Kingdoms of Amalur. Let me create my own character, like in Skyrim. Give me guilds and side quests, like in Kingdoms of Amalur and Skyrim, and with awesome music and other extra little quirks and things like Zelda's got, with dungeons and puzzles, and you basically probably have to combine like 4 or 5 games. And it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But oh well, I can hope. And I can cycle between the games and just enjoy the games I already have and love. So I hope I have adequately answered your question at 9 minutes. Moving on to the next topic that Spin Dash gave me. Any new game idea pop into your head at one point? Yes. Many years back, I want to say probably 2006, give or take. Friend of mine and I, he gets big ideas in his head all the time, and he wanted to make a game that was a lot like Morrowind. And at the time, I really didn't know what Morrowind was or what the Elder Scrolls games were. So he just wanted to make a big open world game where you could do all this customization and stuff, and we really started to flesh things out. I worked primarily on the story because that's what I was good at. And interestingly enough, the story is actually turned into part of my big original series work that I'm trying to complete and eventually, get published and all that jive. It's going to be a long time before any of that happens. But that was one game idea we had, was to make a game that was a lot like Skyrim, a lot like the Elder Scrolls. You might have a fixed main character that you could customize his face and his look, kind of like on Dragon Age or Mass Effect, rather than Skyrim, which has 10 different, or Morrowind even, which had 10 playable races. But yeah, it was interesting. What other game ideas have I had? I'd love to see some kind of space game epic where it's got a mature storyline like Mass Effect, but it plays like Star Fox 64. I think an all-rail shooter that really gets the full treatment with certain levels that are open and free roam, fly around and do stuff, kind of a mixture of Mass Effect for on-ground stuff and Star Fox 64 with like the on-rail shooter, flying shooter simulator sort of thing. That could be really cool. But people probably won't make it. I don't know. The on-rail shooters tend to only last like, I don't know, an hour or two. Back in the day, I could go through Star Fox 64 in half an hour. And then we got medals on all the planets and unlocked the hard difficulty, and yeah, that went out the window. What else? Those are the two that really come to mind when people ask me if I've had a new game idea. It's tough for me to have new game ideas because I don't do code. I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I probably never will be, because my brain just doesn't have the ability to retain coding knowledge or anything like that. I can't even hardly do basic HTML. It's pretty lame. But yeah, there's that one. Hopefully it answered your question. Hopefully what I had to say was interesting and not too boring. Okay, now the questions for this episode. I really don't have many, because apparently you guys thought I could just talk long enough on those two topics, and obviously at more than 12 and a half minutes now, you're correct. So, the first question, again, comes from Nintendo Queen. Howdy there. She asks me, which do I prefer, cats or dogs? Well, that's something I've had to think about a little bit, because when I was a little kid, I always preferred dogs. I always wanted a dog when I was growing up. But as I've gotten older, it's a lot of work. And dogs stink really bad. Especially like little ones. And big dogs that spend all their time outside. My friend had a wiener dog, dachshund. Her name was Honey. We called her Rat Dog. She was a sweet dog, but you could smell that dog from 10 feet away. It was terrible. And we also used to have a dog, black lab and boxer mix. Her name was Angel. She was the nicest dog you'd ever meet. But she was an outside dog, and she would take baths in the creek. And, yeah, she stank. She could make a bath smell bad. And she did. Plus cats, I mean, yeah, they've got attitude problems. They'll scratch you up and it hurts. But they're pretty independent, so I'd probably get a cat. A cat that likes me, of course, but I'd probably go with cats right now, which is kind of surprising to me, to be honest. But cats, yeah, I think I'm going to pick cats. Okie doke, that's the only question she asked me. Next, we move on to Slasher. Hey, Slasher. Thank you for asking me questions this time. I appreciate it. No disappointment here this time. Okay, his first question is, if you could become any animal aside from human, what animal would you be? Good question. This is something I used to do all the time as a little kid. If I was still a little kid, I'd definitely be a T-Rex. Oh yeah, no question. But a Tyrannosaurus Rex is now extinct, so being a Tyrannosaurus Rex turning into a bunch of bones buried in the dirt, that doesn't really sound so fun. So, what animal would I be? That's... I'd probably be a polar bear. Yeah, probably a polar bear. It'd be huge. You'd get to live in the snow. Stuff wouldn't bother me. I just bro fist the ice, break it, and grab a fish and chow down. Yeah, probably a polar bear. That sounds like a fun life. Okay, Slasher's next question. If you created a black hole, what would you do? If I created a black hole, what would I do? Interesting question. I'd probably just try and live inside it. Pick some angle where I can just watch and see what happens when things enter into a black hole, because, I mean, no one really knows. It just goes into a black hole and it's gone. I don't really know. A black hole is an interesting concept, because technically if I created one, I'd get swallowed up by it. So, I mean, I'd probably just toss all the stuff I don't like into it and just leave it. Like my own personal garbage disposal. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, what, you like this? Okay, you're gone into the black hole, goodbye now. I'd probably become a dictator of some kind, and people wouldn't like me very much. I think that's the best answer I can give you right now, man. Okay, the final question for this episode comes from Riku or Sableye. I will now refer to you just as Sableye the whole time, because Japanese names and me, we just don't get along. And he asks me a very difficult question to answer. Who is the greatest band of all time? I will probably upset a lot of people with my answer, because I am not a Beatles fan. I am not in any way, shape, or form a Beatles fan. I have never been a Beatles fan. A lot of people pick the Beatles, and I will not doubt, historically, they are very influential. Without the Beatles recording, the Beach Boys would have never shown up, and without the Beach Boys recording as a sort of competition to the Beatles, we probably wouldn't even have stereo recording the way we do now. Regardless, I cannot stand their music. So the Beatles, they're gone. A lot of people pick Led Zeppelin. Not really a big fan of most of their music. I don't like the vocals. The guy sounds terrible. Can't really sing. There's only one song by Zeppelin I really do like, and that's Rock and Roll. A lot of people pick Kashmir or something else. I don't know. Stairway to Heaven, maybe. Not me. I pick Rock and Roll, and that's about it. They're another band, totally influential. A lot of the bands I listen to probably listen to Zeppelin, and it was their inspiration. But I don't believe they're the greatest band of all time. Some people pick Black Sabbath, AC/DC. All influential, all good, mostly, here and there. But honestly, I think I'm going to pick Amon Amarth. That's right. A currently active Swedish death metal band that sings about Vikings. You can't get much more awesome than that. They've been around since 1993. It's not like they're new on the scene. They've had the same singer for every single song they've ever done. I've looked this up. I think the only real lineup changes they've had are drummers, really. They don't really completely do anything extraordinary. The guy doesn't sing. He just screams, growl screams the whole time. They don't really sing any slow songs. They don't really have a slow tempo, and it's usually countered by blisteringly fast double bass pedal, double kick. It's their melodies, their guitar melodies that they do, their guitar work, and just the way that they can still, after 19 to 20 years of putting out albums, they can still find new things to write about. They find catchy new melodies. I hum the melodies in my head all the time. Honestly, I think they're the greatest band. A close second would probably be Germany's Blind Guardian. They also are known as the Bards. They do a different kind of metal, power metal. It's more melodic. He definitely sings. The guy's got a great voice, and they write about all manner of things from The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, to George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, to The Eternal Champion by Michael Moorcock. Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. They base it off a lot of fantasy novels, and they even wrote a song for the video game Sacred 2. And then they put an orchestra to it for their album, and it was just incredible. So I would say those two bands are probably the greatest bands I am currently aware of, just because they're able to be creative, keep things fresh in a day where all of the music typically sounds the same. They might not be the most historically influential bands, but I think they're amazing. So, I believe that is going to be the end of the questions for this episode. Shu, don't worry, I didn't forget your questions. I actually have them typed up right here in my notes, and I'm going to be using them in the next episode because I could probably do an episode just solely on those. That doesn't mean don't ask me more questions, because I can fit questions in. But these two questions were really good, and I want to devote the time to them that I think they deserve. The first question is, if you could be a character from any book or novel you have ever read, who would you be and why would you want to be them? That is an excellent question because I have read so many books, and I really want to be able to give this some time to think about an answer for you and talk about it. And then the other one is, if someone or you wrote a book about your life, what do you think the title should be? And honestly, I have no idea. So I'm going to work on an answer for those and definitely talk about those next time. Please, come on guys, ask me more questions. See, obviously I can ramble on about a topic for a long time, but I like answering these questions. It's fun. It gives me more variety and I don't have to think up a topic myself. Which, if I just did that the whole time, then you guys would probably lose interest and go away. So, okay, I believe that does it for both the topics and the questions this episode. It is, like I thought, it was about 10 minutes longer than the previous one. Hopefully that's not too much of a problem. This might become the standard length, I don't know. It really depends on the kind of topics I get. If I keep getting good topics that I can ramble on about, like I have been with the video game question, now the book question, then yeah, the average length is probably going to be about this long. But you never know. So, I hope you guys have a pleasant day or evening whenever you decide to read this. No matter what you're doing, whether you're sitting there eating a sandwich, sitting there in your underwear. I guess that might be a little creepy, but regardless, take it easy, peeps. ZSOF signing off.